Welcome, Sharmistha Raja. So excited to be having this conversation with you today.
Thank you so much, Vijay. It's a pleasure being here.
What is the fallout for employees at various levels in the organization, especially at the leadership and the senior to mid levels?
From a leadership standpoint, the most impact has been felt at the first time manager level, which is basically your folks who've got promoted as first time as managers and who've been hired as first time managers. And this is a trend we've seen throughout the industry, that first time managers have to cater to two needs. One is leading a team, which is a new skill for them. Two is leading virtually. But the good thing is that, where do these leaders come from? They come from your Gen Y and Gen Z, who are already very comfortable interacting, working in a virtual mode. They're more comfortable on chat, and they're more comfortable with technology compared to some of us probably who've worked in an era of picking up the phone and getting work done, coordinating, collaborating, and all of that. So it'll be important for them to kind of firstly understand the fundamentals of management, of leading teams. What has been noticed and in the past 2 years is the leaders who've been able to pivot to the virtual world are the ones who've displayed a very high inclination towards learning, which means learning new skills, learning technology, learning how to show up on calls, be camera ready, work on their executive presence, right? They have to really work on those aspects. They really leveraged their emotional intelligence and showed up with a lot of intention.
So, given the background of what you spoke about, what are some of the challenges organizations are facing as a result of these disruptions? So I know one of the key themes emerging that you spoke about was about the virtual skills, leading virtually, embracing technology, and so on. But what do you think are the other key themes emerging from a people development and talent management perspective?
Yeah, as an organization, for sure, this is a major theme, and you must have seen a lot of conversations around this, is
Yes.
employee well-being and psychological safety. This topic has become most important in organizations, irrespective of scale, irrespective of being global or a local organization. And talent management had a huge role to play to kind of understand employee well-being. What does psychological safety really mean? So what it really means is helping employees to find their voice and help them share it without any fear or negative consequences to their job, to their self-image or their career. That is what building psychological safety is. The next is the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece. Now, we've always had agendas of the women empowerment piece, people with disabilities, and other such, the LGBTQI agenda as well. So all of this has really gained momentum in the last couple of years. Leaders have really started understanding or kind of valuing that leading from the heart, which is empathy, is really a strength at times like this. Yeah. Right? So it's okay to show our vulnerabilities. It's okay to show that, as a leader, I may not have everything figured out, but guess what? We will do this together. So really having that courage to be vulnerable, and because that's the only human aspect you can show virtually, right? By kind of vocalizing it, saying it. So leaders have really come forward to be more authentic and really say and be vocal about their needs and where they need help. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing that I could add to. What has happened with that is, in the face of a challenge or a threat, suddenly, so there's a villain. Okay, so COVID is the villain. Suddenly, you will then see the emergence of a hero, and then you have everybody else coming together with the hero. Right now, COVID being the villain, all of us is the villain. So all of us have kind of started building that camaraderie. So from colleagues and team members, we are now moving to call each other as work family members because we're all in this together, right? That has created that social connectedness within teams as well, which is pretty inspiring, right? And the last is, of course, it's changed the way you look at careers of people as well. Their work is one aspect. It's great if your work is aligned to your passion, but if there are gray lines, if there's something else, this is a very good opportunity for organizations to realize that there is the talent, the overall talent that they have, and not just the kind of work the workforce is doing, but what's the talent that we have, and how can we nurture that talent, help employees show up, show all of them, right, in their talents, their strengths, their aspirations. So it's a pretty interesting time when it comes to talent management as well. So those were my observations of, what are the themes emerging in different organizations across industries, etc.
Well, that's, I think, very valid. In the earlier era, I mean, pre-pandemic, themes like employee well-being might have been shoved under the carpet, right? But now it's really coming out in the fore. Organizations are becoming proactive, and it's also the employees who are becoming proactive and asking out and reaching out for help, and they want some engagement at the organization level and at the leadership level to help them with aspects that you spoke about, career management and well-being and so on. And in that aspect, I think D&I is also becoming a little more layered than what it was. I think that is also very valid. It was something more to do with women leadership and things like that, but I think it's also diversity of voices, and in that sense, it's becoming a little more layered than what it was. How is tech helping in efficiency and effectiveness of learning programs that organizations are deploying, keeping in mind these themes that you just spoke about?
It depends on what is the strategy for an organization. There have been so many developments in the tech field that have really changed the learning experience for our employees, right? And when I say our employees, it's all of us. So just not just organizations, just look at today. If I have to learn, say for example, I want to learn how to do a particular formula on Excel. What do? We go to Google, we quickly type in how to and use this formula, and then we get to know. So technology has really helped scale up learning solutions. What I'm interested to really know is, with technology coming in, there's a lot of data, there are a lot of metrics, there's a lot of information coming in. But what's the story that those numbers say? So information is great. That's coming from technology and processes and all of that. But what are the insights? What's the story is saying about our employee journey or the talent management practices? That comes with context, which is different for every organization, every industry. So that piece of the puzzle is something that I believe technology can never fill in. So we can have data coming in, processes coming in, information coming in. But how do we contextualize that to the need of the organization? And how do we meet our employees in the middle where they are? By that, I mean that we might have an entire career management process in place. We have assessments, we've got various insights that come in. We have aspirations of the person or whatever, if they've shared that, their performance, if the organization says, all of that is there. But where is the employee currently in their learning journey? Are they really ready? That piece of the puzzle can only be filled in by a human intervention. And that's where coaching and mentoring come in. So no matter how advanced technology gets, there will always be a human being behind it, working on a tool, designing it, but also somebody who will contextualize that to the employee.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part about contextualizing it to the employee, as you said. And currently you have so many multiple systems throwing multiple data points, multiple workflows. So it's almost becoming like an F1 data analytics team, where tech is available to manage.
Data is the new oil, they say.
Yeah. But just a follow-up question to that. I mean, do you see these systems getting more disaggregated or getting more consolidated? And the second question is, which you just spoke about, is to have that human touch. I mean, about striking that balance, So how much of the tech do you have is enough? I mean, how do you kind of strike that balance? I think that would be an interesting
Right.
point of view. Yeah.
It's very interesting you asked me that, there are apps now to give each other a pat on the back. There are apps kind of trying to replicate every human interaction.
Yeah.
But trust me, is the experience the same? No. Like I see an app and then we can get, oh, you have a pat on the back from somebody, just like how you have in different social media platforms or whatever, an emoticon, all of that. There will be no substitute to human interaction. That is my firm belief. There will be no substitute. No tech can replace a human being in those aspects. So, but still talking about tech, it does have a lot of merits to it, and consolidation for sure, depending on what the need of the organization is and where they're heading, what's their goal, etc. But consolidation is always better, keeping the end learner in mind, the end customer, which is your learner, your employee, keeping them in mind. Consolidating definitely makes a lot of sense. And also the learning team, the talent management team, for them to use one tool which is integrated is much easier, right? So the data speaks to each other, you get the metrics and the output in terms of numbers, it's much more synchronized, etc. So consolidation always will be preferred. That's my view. But also, how do we personalize this? How do we customize this based on the learner? And as I said, the human touch comes from coaching, mentoring, probably even counseling. And therefore, this is a must have skill for all the leaders and managers in various positions in the organization. It's a skill that will definitely give a lot of returns in terms of employee experience.
So interesting that you touched upon the mentorship programs, and especially, again, one of the key themes that is emerging is for organizations is to foster social connects. And to that extent, a lot of organizations have a buddy or a mentorship programs, but then they just kind of remain on paper. So how do you see, especially in the hybrid environment, trying to have a very effective buddy and a mentorship program, intertwined with tech, which kind of can provide a human touch as well as some kind of enablement with tech. So the next question is, about any examples of learning interventions by Indian or global companies within your industry that have struck you? I mean, struck you with the right balance across aspects that we've discussed?
Well, very interesting. So I'm a big fan of trends for the year. So there are a lot of publications that share, oh, this is the trend for this year, and this is what we can look for as best have skills for the year, etc. So this article about, it was an ATD article, Association of Talent Development article that talked about the future of L&D and 5 learning trends for 2021, which means these are the 5 things that worked for organizations and some of the best organizations across industries. Number 1, and I'd anticipated this, is customized learning journeys. I think I spoke about that earlier as well, is how do we meet the employee where they are in their learning journey? Which is, we don't need to really make new content. We curate content. We curate which is already there in the market, and then filter what kind of learning suits which learner at what level based on what skill they have. Now, that's where the value addition comes from talent management professionals and L&D professionals, is how do you can contextualize that content to your workforce. So customized learning journeys is one theme that came up. The second is the power of peer learning. Mm-hmm. Right? Tell me, Vijay, I mean, if you're stuck somewhere, and what's the first thing you do? You probably reach out to one of your team members and say, hey, what do I do? How do I fix this, right? Yeah. You know, somebody who's good with doing reports, you immediately reach out to them. I need to do this report. Can you help me? So peer learning has always been our natural way of working together, but really kind of harnessing that power of peer learning has been another theme. And the third is, and this is my absolute favorite one, this is the emerging conversations around the learning science, which means what is the science of learning? So for example, for an IT professional, the technical skills would be their Java and all of those certifications, languages that they know, etc. That is their technical knowledge. And then there are human skills, working together, communication, all of that. For a learning professional, their technical skills will be understanding neuroscience, understanding models in learning, how do human beings learn, etc. All of those. So learning science is an up and coming interdisciplinary field that has methodologies, it's got neuroscience, it's got behavioral economics, it's got data science, it's got all of that. So that's a very interesting field that's coming up, and learning professionals who really want to up their game and create learning solutions in terms of either training programs or sessions, this is the time to kind of venture there, right? So how do you integrate all of this to create that experience for the learner? So learning science is a big one. Fourth one is around micro learning and learner engagement. So, if right, we could probably be in a meeting for about 45 minutes and then we start getting a little uncomfortable, right? Imagine being in a training program and being at the receiving end and trying to learn. But this is where bite-sized learning, is really impactful. You have those bite-sized learning in whatever modality you want. You do it in terms of an e-learning, you do it in terms of a video, you do it in terms of just activities, etc. So that came up as a theme as well. And last but not the least, the term that I was newly introduced to is edutainment, is education with entertainment. So if we were in a classroom and we were to start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and usually I would reach about like 8:15 to ensure everything is set up. And then we have, we'll have participants coming in. You interact with them, hi, hello, you have a cup of tea, all of that. In the virtual environment, all of that is gone. Those opportunities have gone. All that small talk that used to happen during training programs, that's gone. Now, having said that, how do you really engage your audiences in a virtual training? So a lot of trend came in terms of, not just showing videos, but using music and all of that. So engaging all the five senses, right? Visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So actually engaging participants, ensuring they get up, take a walk, do something around which is physical and gets them engaged with the content. So that came up as a big trend as well. And usually L&D facilitators, all of them, whoever in the industry I've met, have been fantastic, and they always find ways to kind of engage the participants. But now doing that virtually became, again, for us also to pivot to the virtual world, right? How do we now take trainings virtually was a new skill. So trainers who really enjoyed doing this, it energized them. And so that's the fifth trend that I saw that emerged last year. And these are here to stay. It's going to continue. And the better we get at it, and the better it's for our learners, better it's for the industry. We're actually setting the example of it can be done. We can lead virtually effectively. So leading by example. So these were my 5 observations of how we've pivoted from a learning standpoint.
Coming to my last question, being a leadership development practitioner, any practical tips for being effective leaders and managers at the workplace?
Oh, that's my favorite question. And there's so many. Okay, but let me try and kind of make it brief into like, say 3 or 4, 5 points. Okay. Number 1, emotional intelligence. As I said, that the missing piece of the puzzle is a human being, and what makes us human is our emotions, right? So emotional intelligence will be a competency that will be a game changer for leaders. And specifically within emotional intelligence is the first skill, which is self-awareness. I can't begin to emphasize the importance of self-awareness, Vijay. And I have also been on this journey. So I've actually lived as I practice. I teach and I practice similarly, right? So this is not as easy as just knowing, okay, these are my skills, these are my strengths, this is what I'm good at. It's not that. So if you look at the sea and you look at the water level, right? Everything above the surface of the water, all that I mentioned right now, qualifications, strengths, skills, etc. It's all above, right? Everybody knows it, you know it. Self-awareness really is going deep, which means, what are my values? What are my beliefs? What are my self-limiting beliefs? What are my empowering beliefs? What are my mental models? What are my paradigms? What is my purpose? So really, and if you see this in most of the leaders, absolutely inspiring, famous leaders have a very high level of self-awareness. In fact, they are not just aware, they have found a way to channelize that to not just self-manage, but also understand what is happening with the other person from an EI standpoint. So that's going to be a game changer, emotional intelligence. Second is impactful communication. So communication is not about speaking a particular language very well, using fancy words. No, communication is about connection. It is how am I able to connect with my team members? How am I able to connect with my customers? If we were in a room, we could shake hands and we could get to see each other's body language, and most of our communication happens from body language. In the absence of that, virtually, would be how do I show up into my meetings? How can I convey that energy and convey that genuineness, the authenticity with authenticity? So impactful communication would be another skill. Third is, and this comes from one of my favorite books by Brene Brown, and it says, Dare to Lead. This is a time to really be out there, be your absolute authentic self, because there's no hiding. There is this laptop and a whole world out there. So we might feel like we're hidden behind the camera, but no. So this is my window to the world. How authentic I can come, on my calls, my conversations as a leader will be a game changer. So it takes courage to do that. It takes a lot of courage. So therefore, the book's title is Dare to Lead. And the fourth is, as I mentioned, learning the art of coaching and mentoring. It's going to be a game changer for sure. And the fifth one is, for a manager and a leader, there's so many expectations from them, isn't it? They need to be the leader of a team. They need to be a guide. They need to be a disciplinarian. They need to be ops focused. They need to be a trusted advisor of a customer. They need to be the representative to the senior leadership. There are so many roles that managers and leaders play on a daily basis. So their ability to pivot, adapt different roles that they play, be aware that this is what I need to do now. So if I'm with my team member, I need to coach them. I'm a coach right now. If I'm getting into a meeting with a customer, I'm a trusted advisor there. So wearing different hats. And it's not just that, being aware that you're wearing a different hat. That sets the mindset. And then everything follows. So ability for leaders to really understand that and deliver will be a game changer as well. So these are my 5 practical tips to be an effective leader in an environment that we're in today, irrespective of which industry you are from and what your organization is into. These will be my 5 tips. I hope that helped, Vijay.
So with that, we come to the end of this edition. Sharmistha, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on Talent Co in Shorts. This was a really interesting conversation with lots of insights and takeaways. Especially the 5 points that you came up with towards the end. Thank you once again for your time, and I look forward to having a physical interaction whenever time permits in the future.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and I hope our viewers had some key takeaways from our discussion. Very happy to be here and doing this, Vijay. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.